financial advisor with Edward Jones. I started collecting banks many years ago. My dad was a serviceman. He was in the Army for 23 plus years, and we were stationed abroad a number of times. And my mom always tended to pick up a bank of some sort when we were living abroad, and you know, they just kind of became a thing that my mother kind of had a liking for, and so that kind of grew on us, I guess. Actually, when I started having an interest in banks, it started with my mother having a clown bank, which I have here. My kid brother and I used to sit and pull that bank out, and she had it full of foreign coins, and we would pour all of those coins out and we would go through them. We would talk about them. We would trade them. We would discuss a lot of times what country they came from, because it doesn't always say where they came from. Mom used to try to help us with that, but she couldn't remember a lot of times where they came from. We would play games with them. We would slide them across the table and see who could get the closest to the edge of the table. We would exchange them. You know, we'd kind of divvy them up randomly and then say, well, I'll trade this one for this one. But they always went back in the bank. And Mom put it away, and next time we had an interest in looking at the coins again, she would pull it out and we'd just empty them out. We were probably somewhere between 6 and 8 years old at the time, and I still have that bank. Actually, I didn't know my mother had that bank until she passed away. She had put it away, so I'm glad to have that bank. That's probably my most special bank. I'm not a collector of any specific type of banks. Just if something I see hits my fancy, then I'm glad to pick that up if the price is right. I've not spent a lot of money on any particular banks. The most I've spent on any bank that I recall is about $60. The interesting thing about banks is some of the history on the banks. There's a number of different kinds of banks. You can buy cast iron banks, some of which are very original, some of which are not original. They're reproductions. You can certainly buy pig banks. There's so many different banks that are pigs that you can't even imagine. Anything that's razorbacks, I collect. As far as history on the banks goes, there's a lot of banks that were done and put out by our savings and loans and our credit unions and things over the years as incentive to young people to save money. Years ago, they would literally, with a deposit from the child or from the child's parent, they would literally put money into the bank, and they would get a bank in return for them to continue saving. And then when they filled their bank up, they would take it to the bank and empty it out and put it back in their savings account. I find some banks have different themes on why they tell you that you should be saving your money in the banks. You know, could be for retirement, might be for vacation, it could be for old age. And it says it most of the time right there on the bank. I like the fact that I display them here in the office because they have, if you will, a money theme. And of course, I'm in the financial services industry, so because of that, they even have a little bit more meaning to me, if you will. And they're great conversation pieces. I bought this in a box, brand new, and it's late 50s, early 60s. And what you do with this one here is you pull back the gun, you lay your coin flat, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to shoot the coin into here. And when you do, well, let me do it this way. You shoot the coin, and when it goes in, his arms go up like you've got me. These banks here are metal banks, okay? And again, a lot of times back in the day, the banks would give you a way to save money. A lot of these only would allow for dimes. Some of them allowed for up to quarters. But these are examples, if you will, of banks that put out banks so that to encourage kids to save money. So that's what those are, okay? And then this one is made abroad. It's a carousel, but it's done in an oriental way. More metal banks. This bank I picked up for $15. This bank was made way back in the 1920s when they celebrated the 150th birthday of the United States. Again, it's a cast iron bank. It's very old. If you want to know whether you have a genuine cast iron older bank versus a reproduction, there's a couple of ways you can look. First off, how they were sealed or how they were welded together. That's different than what they do today. And more times than not, what you'll see is when you see a screw that holds that cast iron bank together, more times than not, almost all the time, it's going to be a straight screwdriver. It's not going to be a Phillip head screw. It's going to be a straight screw. So that's kind of one of the ways you know whether how old they are or not. Did you notice this one? Popeye, you remember Popeye? I don't know if you're old enough to remember Popeye, but that's a dime bank. It only registers dimes. Keeps count, and it'll register up to $5 worth of dimes, and then you just open it up and pour them out when you've gotten the bank. These are pig banks. You can, I bet they make 10 to 1 pigs over any other kind of bank. Then I have a few animal banks. This one is a reproduction cast iron bank here. Arkansas themes here. This bank my mother bought when we were stationed in Germany. Okay, this is made by Goebel, which is very collectible. But what's unique about this, I found this in her things when she passed. The price tag is still on this bank. To show you how valuable it is, or how valuable it was then. My mom worked at the PX on base, and she bought this at the PX, and when you were in the military, you got things without all of the extra upcharges like excise taxes and other things, but she paid $11.25 for this bank. We were there from 68 to 72. I didn't take the price tag off because that's going to discolor and it would devalue the price of the bank, if that makes sense. But that's a friar. I always called him Friar Tuck. Okay, but very unique. These banks I put here on this shelf kind of have a money theme. These were given to me. These are gold bars. They're not really gold bars, but they are banks, as you can see. I'm not currently actively looking, but I will say this: if I came up on something that I found intriguing or unique, I would definitely get it.